email in general to the presidents and just said, hey, here I am. And I responded and said, hey, I need a speaker. And I do know that Rotary Youth Exchange used to be very active here, and it was very active in Port Hardy when I lived there, so I'm interested in hearing more about where it's at. So Craig is a retired assistant school superintendent who worked in the Campbell River School District for 32 years. And he's been a Rotarian of the Campbell River Daybreak Club since 2001. He's very passionate about Rotary Youth Exchange, having been the Asia Country Officer for 5 years, and he's in his second year as district chair. He is the district governor nominee for 2018-2019, and he says that he doesn't need much of an introduction, so I guess I've already said everything I know. Thanks so much for coming by, Craig. He's actually on his way home from Tacoma, so thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Well, I really appreciate this opportunity. I actually was very strategic. I sent an invitation or a letter of plea to a few clubs that I knew at one time were very active in the program. And I'm very passionate about us trying to grow this program. And I just wanted to share a little bit of the reason I thought of Alberni. For so many years, we came to this community. Both of my children were in the summer swim club program. I coached for years through the school system, and we always loved Alberni. We always loved the camaraderie, the sense of inclusion, and I think also with the fact that you have a beautiful new school now, it's a great opportunity. So what I wanted to say is, when I think of Rotary Youth Exchange, given all the distress we have currently in the world, if there's one thing I say today that I'd like you to remember, it's, I think we can change the world one student at a time. It's that whole starfish concept, you know, if we just, not only does the Rotary Youth Exchange program draw a student into our community and teach them about our country and the U.S., which is also part of our international district, but it also, I think, imprints us with an understanding and awareness. I want to share just one little anecdote, and then I'll get on to some of the how, the what, and the where, or I should say the how, the what, and the why of the Youth Exchange program. Port Hardy, small community of 3,000 people, our northernmost club in the group of 91 clubs now in our district, has for years taken 2 students. And 2 years ago they had Ray from Indonesia. And Ray contacted me as the Asia Country Officer, and he said, Craig, this is by email, I am going to Port Hardy. Can you tell me, I am a musician, do they have a symphony there? I thought, well, over to you, Frank, the Youth Exchange Officer there. As it turned out, Ray just had a remarkable year, as the students often do who go to Port Hardy. And he got up at our club the day he visited and he said, hello, my name is Ray Reshet. I come from Jakarta, city of 17.5 million people. This year I am living in Port Hardy with some people. And I thought, wow, that is such an amazing ability to just transform this into an amazing experience. When we put him on the plane to go home, I said, what'll you always remember, Ray? And he said, the water out of the tap. Let people know how much of a gift that is. Water out of the tap and this air, this beautiful, fresh, clean air. So I just wanted to put together for you just a few images and kind of guide you through some of the thoughts that I think, I guess I have to stay here, don't I? Am I okay? These are 2 of our girls that were in the Comox Valley a couple of years ago, and every year we bring all of our district students for a mid-year orientation for 5 days. They're billeted by Comox Valley Courtney Rotary Clubs, and they do a lot of winter activities at that time, and that's just the promotional poster. This is the group of students that we're sending out this year. They're going to an amazing group of countries, and I'll say a little bit more about that, but if you want to know just a bit about the what of it, there's over 8,000 students annually involved in Rotary Youth Exchange. In our district, there are 30 of the now 91 Rotary clubs that participate. We exchange with 25 different countries. We're always trying to bring in some new countries. For the first year, we will have a student from Korea this year, and we have a student from Turkey. But that does not always mean it's a two-way exchange. If a country is on our concern list, we don't send a student there. So there is no student going to Turkey, and there's no student going to Korea this year. Those are some of the countries that we exchange with. This year we'll have 32 inbound and we will have 29 outbound students. We also have the short-term program, which is basically 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks in the summer, where students will go out, but that's basically a family-to-family exchange just under the umbrella. When my son went to Thailand in 1997, we were sending over 60 students from our district. So you can see we're about half the size. And the reasons for that, probably quite evident. One is there's a huge international student opportunity program now. Many of our schools are marketing to bring students in. Host families are becoming more difficult to find. I think people are looking at themselves and saying, we can't have this really exciting, wonderful, memorable. We're just an ordinary family. And I think, thirdly, there's sometimes it's just, there are greater levels of accountability around the safety and the security and documentation of our students. So it does take some time. We have an amazing website. If you're ever on one of those November Stormwatch evenings, you're sitting at home alone and you've got a nice glass of wine in your hand, just go to rye5020.org and just play around with the website, because this has all of the information that you would require. And it will talk about our inbound, outbound, and all of the resources that are needed. And when we do our training each year, we did it in Parkville, Qualicum in June. I just got back from Gig Harbor last Sunday. What we do now, we don't give people reams of paper anymore. We show them where to find the materials on the website. If you were looking at, and I say if with a plea in my eyes and a quiver in my voice, if you were looking at this, I think there's this great opportunity for you to partner as clubs. What we have done in Campbell River with the other club, the Campbell River Club, the Noon Club, is last year we had 4 amazing kids who applied, and we said we cannot turn down any one of these. One of them was actually from Gold River, and we took him in under wing. So in order to do that, we had to take in, we took in 3 students. Each of our clubs took in 1 student, and then we shared the 3rd student. And they all left deep imprints. We had a girl from Germany, a boy from Hungary, and a boy from Argentina. And yeah, there's always lots of tears, and there's lots of heart-wrenching hugs there as they head on their way back to their other lives. But I do think it's important at a club level for you to explore. If you know, before, one year we had a shaky year. We had Ilya from Russia, and he was a little bit of a scamp, and he burned out a few of our families. So we had to go back to the drawing table, and we did some partnering, and we asked some questions as a result of that. And I'll come back to this later, but these were the questions we asked. At the end of the year, what do we hope the Rotary student will have gained? So we put down some measurables, some things that we felt were really critical for us as a club. At the end of the year, what do we hope we as a club will have gained? How will we have been enriched by the presence of that student? What expectations do we have? Now, there are the expectations that are laid out, but you have expectations as well. Are they a participant in your meetings? Do they come to your meeting each week? Do they help you out with the fundraisers that they can? Are they good citizens, ambassadors? How can we as Rotarians support the student and host families? Some clubs now, they'll do things such as, okay, they'll set up a dinner rotation and say, we've got these dates here, and we would like everyone, or those who can, invite this student over to your home for dinner. Takes the dinner preparations off the table of the host family, for a while, and how can we help the host family so that we as a full club are supporting them? And what are the roles of the host family? I just want to go back to this. We have a fairly complex organization. The country officers, the district committee, spends a huge amount of time each year. And we divide it according to 5 areas. We have country officers. So there's Asia, Africa, Central Europe, Western Europe, Northern Europe, and South America. And that becomes the contact person to help with the documentation, the visa procurement, and so on. We have club coordinators. In Canada, it's Erica Chandler-France from our own club, and Paul Austin, who's in the Pools Boat Club. And then we have other admin support, you'll see, and then people who are involved with our events coordination. So it's a fairly extensive, there's about 16 people on our committee, and we meet 4 times a year. So those are just, in short, the kind of what. Are we committed to selecting and sponsoring an outbound student? If you were looking at this, in essence, the year begins fairly soon. Once the school year goes back in, it's a matter of advertising and planning, and then having an interview process for the students that are interested. It's always great if you have someone who is a connection to the local high school, because that person can then kind of make the coordinate how to get to students. It doesn't work to just drop a form off and say, would you distribute these to the interested students? Many of our clubs are now going to language students who are taking a second language, because there's an affinity for use of and exploration of language. Just a little side note, we no longer exchange with students whose first language is English. In other words, countries such as England, New Zealand, Australia, because a big part of our district mandate is to give students that other language. In other words, whether they come back speaking Thai, Indonesian, Spanish, whatever it might be, it's really important that there's a cultural and a language component to the exchange. In terms of I guess I should mention financials. In terms of the family itself pays for the student who's outbound. They have what is called a flat fee of $2,000 US that goes towards paying for their approved insurance, which we organize through a company, for their outbound orientation, which occurs usually in March in Victoria, for their rebound, the summer of the year that they come back, and then other things like their business cards and their pins and other admin costs. So that's basically covered. The family comes up with that funding, although some clubs do have a scholarship program where they will assist with that. The other thing that is the other cost of the program, though, is for the inbound student. There are 3 district activities each year. The inbound orientation in September, when they all first arrive, it's the 2nd weekend in Seabeck, Washington. Then the Comox Rendezvous, and then the district conference. And that cost is about $1,250. We were paying in Canadian dollars for quite a few years. But this year we've had to ship. The difference is just too great. Now we can't ignore the fact that it isn't changing, but we're hoping that eventually we'll be able to pay in our Canadian dollars. So that $1,250 is basically the one-time cost, and that's usually paid by the club at the beginning of the year. And then you have an obligation to give the student a monthly allowance. And that monthly allowance varies depending on which community the student lives in and what the kind of cost of living is, and whether or not they need rapid transit or whatever it might be. And I would say most of the clubs, somewhere around $100, $150. Some of the clubs are now starting to do what they call a grocery subsidy for the host family. Sometimes students eat little and are not, you don't notice them. even being at the table. And then other times you have a boy with a voracious appetite who just seems to always empty the fridge. So quite a few of the clubs, you can't do this in the US, but we can in Canada, and as a result. So that's another, that's kind of a, it's probably $150, $200 a month to the family. And some families just say, no, I don't need it or want it, but that's that choice. And it is not compulsory that that be offered. So that's just the activity fee. So the why. For those of you who have experienced youth exchange, or if there's anybody who has a fairly innate sense of the why, what are some of the reasons that you feel would be compelling reasons to consider becoming involved in Rotary Youth Exchange again?
Well, number one, it enriches, the student enriches the club.
Yeah.
You get a lot more. Some of our, we were involved with it many years ago, and we've had some students who have come back. A couple of students have come back about 4 or 5 times.
Exactly.
And it really makes it nice.
Like that lifelong
association,
connection.
the life association.
You've left it. They've left an imprint. You've left an imprint.
Yeah, both sides have left that imprint.
Well said. Any other thoughts?
Right now, we've got, I can't pronounce her last name, Svetlana here from Siberia.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And it's just been a joy.
Yes, yeah.
And part of what I've enjoyed watching is her learning about who we are and how things work in our country. Simple things like she made a presentation the other day, and they were having a barbecue. And when she was finished, she went back to the table. And Ken said to her, well, go and get your lunch. Everybody's getting your lunch. Oh, am I allowed to have lunch too? You know, don't I have to pay? Those little kinds of things that you would never think. You know, we're very generous, but yet in her life background, that would be something that she would just do. It's been amazing.
Yeah. We have Julie in Campbell River Court.
Oh, yeah, that's her buddy.
Her cohort, her contemporary there. So.
Another thing I found, Craig, in past with some of our students many years ago, they were exceptionally smart, and the school system was finding they were really challenging the other students in the class.
Yeah.
And raised the level of academic performance among a lot of them.
We tend to get pretty top drawer kids. Okay, no, I mean, sometimes there are, I call them rascals, but we learn from them too, right? I mean, some of my most vivid years in the school system were working in middle school when they needed us, I would say, you know, and we have to start to look at who they will become, not who they are, right? Project ahead. Who is this person with the right? We had a student from Sweden, actually, who came back. I arranged for her to do her practice teaching at Phoenix Middle School when she was in university back in Sweden. I mean, you could create some just amazing opportunities to do that. So that's just one of the thoughts I had. Here's a few. This was the first boy we ever had from Nigeria. He was from Lagos, and I first met him at the Craig, he said, it's about 6'2". I am so pleased to meet you. Well, I am pleased to meet you too. But you know, it was just. And Connie, the girl in the middle who was in the NIMO, oh my goodness, she's in the top university in Taipei. And this girl just came back a month ago from Switzerland, Claudia Freudiger. You know, I mean, it's just, I mean, look at that. This was taken when we went to, they go on a California trip for 4 days in November. It's a voluntary, it's an optional, they pay themselves. But, you know, you look at this kind of a group. Here they are at Seabeck, Washington. We always take pictures. This was our boy from Brazil. He cried every time. We'd have the kids would meet, and then they'd say goodbye. The most tender-hearted, caring, kind of always talk about his grandma and his mom and his family. And I mean, you just learn so much. And this year, we always involve the students at the district conference. We seat them at different tables to make sure they mix and mingle. They're given their instructions. This year, they brought in the flags in the rotunda at Olympia, the state capitol. I mean, it was pretty impressive to see these kids. We always have them do what we call service project. So this year they worked when they were in Olympia, because conference was there. They worked in the food bank garden. Some of them were splitting wood until I saw those axes flying. We had to change that. I said to the little girl from Thailand, "You came with 2 feet. We're sending you home with 2 feet." You just understand. But and they were weeding. They were pruning some of the blackberry vines. They're 3-4 hours, and they come to Comox. They also do a service project as well. That's a picture of them. And this girl was from Kyrgyzstan, Quebec, and every time we took her someplace, she'd get lost and keep the whole group. We called her Quebec Lost in the Mall. So the how, just, know that if this was something that you were considering, you will need a group of people that commandeer it, okay? It's very difficult to do as an individual. It's great to do as a committee. I was just talking to this gentleman here, and Erica, who is our club coordinator. We have 7 people on our exchange committee. And we all take on different roles within and support each other. You don't need to have that many people, but it's very helpful. We also work together as clubs. When we do our interviewing, we do it together. And then we decide which club's going to sponsor which student. If we do events like the orientation for youth protection, we do it together, just to minimize some of the effort and the energy. There also are a lot of opportunities to, I think, be mentored. So if a club was going to enter into this program after a few years away, we would set you up with a mentor, someone that you feel you can call at any time and say, "Can I ask you this question? I don't get this." Or "When do we have to do this?" What we do in our training is we put together basically a calendar, and I'm going to leave this with representatives, but we put together a calendar for the inbound, that's the student who comes out, and the outbound for the student that goes out. And so this little calendar, you just look down and say, "Oh yes, we should be doing this at this point, we should be doing this." We found it much easier to organize this chronologically, because that's the way a lot of people think. They think in order of what's next and what do I have to be looking at. I would say in your case, the school connection would be a really critical one, just kind of building that profile. You probably, I don't believe you have an Interact club, do you, at EDSS? Yeah. That's always been a big source for us. We have an Interact club in Carey High and in Timberline. So these are just a few notes, establishing communication with the high school, making sure that you're aware of some of the timelines, learning about that website and how it can be a repository for information, and reaching out to other clubs and other people who will be able to assist you. The critical part is developing a pool of host families, and usually I would say today, in today's world, you have about, most of our clubs are doing 3 host families, sometimes 2, a few clubs 4, but 3 seems to be about the right length of time. This is just to show you a very quick example of how we encouraged people to become. This is a girl we had years ago, so we did this little presentation. There she is, Sarah Chan. I took stuff out of her application, 236,000. She's from a city in Taiwan, part of Taipei County. She goes to a school of 3,000 students, grade 10, 11, and 12. She was very startled by the Canadian girls. She said, you know, we were talking about Austria one day, and that someone said to me, I like Austria too because of the kangaroos. Anyway, this girl was, as someone said, she was very bright. She was in one of the top schools. That's her home, her apartment. She studied dance. She has an older sister, a couple of older sisters, a little bit about her parents. She has the potential to outdo her present performance. I've written that on a few report cards. She played this thing called the zither. She brought a portable zither. This was her typical day. Free time, I like to construct my blog, watch TV, play the zither, piano. There's her zither. There she is with her parents. And then we just finished with, will you be one of my old friends, please? Yeah. So, yeah, just knowing that flow of the year, working collaboratively with other clubs, and then setting up some communication with the rest of your club. So I'm realizing we are, over time, I'll just finish with, this is a group of kids, when we take them to Strathcona Park Lodge now, as part of the Comox Rendezvous, you know, and just look at that. I mean, these are kids from France, Colombia, Norway, and Belgium. The why? Because they're involved in those kinds of things. They become friends for life. They are the future face of our world, and they have memories of a lifetime. So make the website your friend, know it's there, and please, if you have any other questions, I realize I've maxed out on my time, which I have a tendency to do, but I thank you very much for even giving me this opportunity to provide a little bit of information. And if you have questions, you just call out my name, and I know wherever I am, I'll come running.